Recently, after doing one of my tarot sessions with a client, they were asking for guidance with something that involved time. And after the session, I just sat down in my thinking chair and pondered about that for quite some time. And then it took me down a rabbit trail, I would call it. And I was that fascination that I added a new video to the channel, which you can find in the book playlist. And it was titled The Stories of the Months and Days by Reginald C. Cousins. He offered a look into the origin of the months and the days. And what we discovered, or what I discovered, was that it was laced with cosmology and mythological characters. And I must say that this is the system that is the basis of our modern society's way to track time. And what I find interesting was that it was very beautiful what started to happen, as if something had triggered within me something real primordial to go on this quest, and it triggered more inquiry within me. And I cannot explain it, only to say that it was quite magical. And I'm finding that it is in the Greek that I am discovering, or it is the Greek that is offering answers to some of my most deep questions. And it's currently questioning some of my beliefs, and I'm okay with that, because I'm finding that there is a well of truth where I'm going, and that's pretty fascinating. Many say that ancient Greek civilizations, who at one time were considered a barbarous group of people, layered the foundations for Western civilization through their development of philosophy and democracy. Now the question is, how do you go from being a barbaric civilization to one of fine arts and philosophy, right? The history left behind by the Greeks in art and buildings helped develop the rules and structures of Western art. We see this example through the works of master sculptor Polykleitos and 5th century BC architects of the Parthenon in Acropolis, Athens, by architects Ictinus and Callicrates. Also, literature works they've left behind, such as Oedipus the King, the Iliad, the Odyssey, and Antiquity. Ancient Greek philosophy shaped the foundations of Western thought and culture, leaving an enduring legacy in areas such as ethics, politics, metaphysics, and epistemology. Its profound influence continues to shape our understanding of the world and our place within it. Resurrecting philosophers of the past will reveal those foundations. Spend time with Socrates, with Plato, and Aristotle, and you'll soon discover those bricks of foundation. So much so is this influence that it has been claimed that as many as 150,000 words in modern English have their roots in the ancient language. By some calculations, that's 30% of the English language. Classical Greek back then contained over 60,000 words. And currently, according to the Greek City Times, the Guinness Book of Records ranks the Hellenic language as the richest in the world, with 5 million words and 70 million word types. Keep in mind, the second edition of the 20th volume Oxford English Dictionary contains full entries for over 171,000 words. All I can say is shut the door. The English language, what happened to us? We pale in the richness of our language. Looking at ancient texts through the eyes of classical Greek has opened my eyes to a rich past, and also to a devastating truth of the obfuscation of information that the powers that be have committed on humanity, be it through choice or ignorance. Their selected translation and omission of the ancient texts to include those in the Bible. So my new hobby, thanks to Dr. D.C. Heumann, a philologist who has a channel here on YouTube called Lady Babylon, offers a 21-week course on ancient Greek, free online on his channel. Now, a philologist should not be confused with a linguist, because linguistics deals with language as such, while philology is primarily concerned with the form and particularly with the content of specific documents. And so I'm on a trail and I'm loving the journey. With a little classical Greek that I picked up The Bible and the works of these poets is revealing a past laced with rituals, with sex and drugs, unspeakable acts of all kinds. And for what? Not for the pursuit of Historia? Or was it the sign of the times? Or was it the quest for that ionic life? Or maybe they just wanted to dance with the gods. And so my internal muse, I love that word. It has become my new favorite word now that I know what it really means and its origin. Yes, my internal music has led me to find how the creation came to be through the eyes of Hesiod. And that's what this video is about today. Welcome to my channel. I am Daisy, your hostess. Hesiod was said to be born around 750 to 700 BC in Boeotia, a region of central Greece. He spent his youth as a shepherd near Mount Helikon, a sacred site in ancient Greek religion. Greeks believed Mount Helikon to be the home of the Muses, a group of 9 goddesses who inspired creativity in the arts, knowledge, and music. Keep in mind that Hesiod predates Christianity, which came together as a religion in 1st AD, and Patriarch Abraham of the Hebrews was said to walk the earth in or about 2000 BC. And it wasn't until 400 BC that they put together their Torah, even though Abraham was before Hesiod, but he didn't have anything in writing, as it was customary for the Hebrews to just share their stories orally. But it wasn't until 450 BC that the Torah was written, which included Deuteronomy. And I mentioned that because Deuteronomy has their story of creation, as it was supposedly dictated to Moses by God. But there is an interesting timeline and where we are in that region and the influences that we find through other writings, as far as the rituals, the rites, the songs, the medicine, the drugs, and everything as is incorporated. And we begin to see how all of it is laced. And there's so many similarities from the poets to the different writers of the medicines and the things that were going on in those days. And we see some of these aspects of the politics, the poetry, the drugs, and the rituals also very lightly laced in our ancient religious texts. That's what I've noticed. But that it's there, it's there. And then we have Hesiod's Theogony, which came before the Torah. And it was written around 700 BC. And it is a genealogy, so to speak, a lineage of the Greek gods. So it's interesting that if you try to sit down there and do a timeline of these gods, how they came to be according to Hesiod, it gets a little convoluted. So you need like a really big paper or lots of little papers that you can eventually put together, because you'll discover that there's a lot of incest going on, and a lot of weird stuff too. So I invite you to hop aboard with me on our time capsule to 730 BC as we meet with Hesiod up there on Mount Helikon, and he tells the tales of the gods and the creation and how they came to be. Keep in mind that we're just mere mortals, and we know not the ways of gods, nor do we dare question them, or do we? Sit back as I turn the page. Theogony, Hesiod. Translated by Michael Heumann. Introduction. Greek literature begins with Homer and Hesiod, and while Homer's works, the Iliad and the Odyssey, get most of the attention, Hesiod's contributions to Greek and by extension Western culture are arguably just as important. The only surviving biographical information about Hesiod that still exists comes straight from the poet himself. Early in the Theogony, for example, Hesiod mentions that he is a shepherd who tends sheep under Mount Helikon in Boeotia, a region in central Greece. This is where he claims the Muses appeared to him and gave him the gift of poetry. In Work and Days, Hesiod also notes that he lived in Ascra, a small village near Mount Helikon, that he has a brother, Perses, with whom he was often at odds, that Hesiod's and Perses' father came to Boeotia from Aeolian Seam in Anatolia, and that Hesiod himself rarely left his own region save for one small trip across the 3-mile wide Europe straight, from Aulis to Chalcis, to participate in the funeral games for Athamas of Chalcis, where he won a tripod in a singing competition, which he cites as evidence of the poetic gift given to him by the Muses. Whether these biographical details are accurate is uncertain, but it does provide at least a starting point for investigating Hesiod's writings. The question of when Hesiod wrote is a bit more complex. However, it is likely that Hesiod and Homer wrote in the 8th century, shortly after the emergence of the Greek alphabet. This was a period of great cultural and economic growth after a very long dark ages that began around 1200 BC, when most of the major Mediterranean civilizations, including Hittite, Assyria, Babylonian, and Mycenaean, were wiped out by a combination of natural catastrophes, internal strife, and invasion from a group known from history only as the Sea Peoples. Broadly speaking, then, Hesiod and Homer are writing during the same historical period. They are also using a similar dialect of Greek, which is a variation of Ionic Greek that is usually referred to as Homeric Greek or Epic Greek, a dialect as different from the Greek of classical Greece as Shakespeare is different from modern English. Given these linguistic similarities, then, it is no surprise that both authors employ many of the same poetic conventions, such as the use of epithets, descriptive phrases that identify a characteristic of the person or god in question, like loud thundering Zeus or gray-eyed Athena. By contrast, Hesiod's Theogony uses a bigger canvas and focuses on the biggest of pictures: the creation of the world and the heavens, the birth of the gods, the disputes and battles between the different generations of gods, and the various interaction between the gods and mortals. None of this should come as a surprise, since the word theogony in Greek literally means the genealogy of the gods. This, then, is the principal purpose of this work: to tell the origin of the universe and the subsequent generational development of the gods from primordial beings like Nyx, night, and Gaia, earth, to Olympian gods like Zeus, Athena, and Hera. That is not to say that there are no good stories here, far from it. In fact, this brief work includes many of the most well-known stories from Greek mythology, including Cronos' castration of Uranus, the births of Aphrodite and Athena, the battle between the gods and the Titans, Prometheus, Heracles, Pegasus, Pandora, Jason, and Medea, and Perseus and Medusa. There are also a lot of fascinating monsters, like the 100-handed, the Cyclops, the Harpies, the Gorgons, Echidna, Orthrus, Cerberus, the Hydra of Lerna, and the Chimera. In short, Hesiod's Theogony is a fascinating overview of Greek mythology, but it can be a tricky read given the fact that it revels in the sheer depth of the Greek pantheon of gods. There are over 400 different gods, demigods, and other creatures mentioned in this 1,022-line work, and keeping track of them all is a tall order even for experienced readers of mythology. End of introduction. Theogony. We begin our song with the Helikonian Muses, who hold high and holy Mount Helikon, and with their soft feet dance upon the violet waters and the altar of Cronos' mighty son. After bathing their tender flesh in the Permessus Hypercrine, or sacred Olmidius, they perform their chorals on the highest peaks of Helikon, sublime beauty flowing freely from their feet. Starting there and shrouded in a great mist, they travel by night, their beautiful voices singing to aegis-bearing Zeus, to Queen Hera of Argos, who walks with golden sandals, to Athena, gleaming-eyed daughter of Zeus, to Phoebus Apollo, to shedder of arrows Artemis, to earth-holder and earth-shaker Poseidon, to venerable Themis, to darting-eyed Aphrodite, to golden-crowned Hebe, to fair Dione, to Leto and Iapetus, and wily Cronos, to Eos and great Helios, and bright Selene, to Gaia and great Oceanus, and black Nyx, and to all other immortals who always are. Footnote: Eos is dawn, Helios is sun, Selene is moon, Gaia is earth, Oceanus is the river that circles the world, or just oceans, Nyx is night. End of footnote. The Muses once taught Hesiod a beautiful song as he tended lambs under holy Helikon. First, the goddesses, Olympian Muses, daughters of aegis-bearing Zeus, spoke these words to me. Quote, "Shepherds in fields, foul disgraces, nothing but bellies. We know how to make lies into truth, and we know how to speak truth when we wish." End quote. So saying, Zeus' eloquent daughters plucked a staff, a fine branch of blooming laurels, and gave it to me. They blew a divine voice into my mouth, so I would glorify what was and what will be. And they ordered me to sing of those who always were, and of themselves first and last. But why do I speak of an oak or a rock? Footnote. In other words, why do I speak of unimportant things? End of footnote. We begin with the Muses, who praise great Father Zeus on Olympus, and so cheer his mind, their sweet, harmonic voices flowing tirelessly from their mouths, singing of what is, what was, and what will be. The house of loud thundering Father Zeus laughs at the goddesses' lily-like voices, as do the peaks of snowy Olympus and mansions of the immortals. First, they sing a divine song to celebrate the beginning, the race of gods, those brought to life by Gaia and Uranus, and those born of them, givers of good fortune. Footnote. Uranus is sky or heavens. End of footnote. Then they celebrate Zeus, father of gods and immortals, both in the beginning of their song and the end, for he is the best and greatest of all the gods. Again, the Olympian Muses, daughters of aegis-bearing Zeus, please the mind of Olympian Zeus by singing of the races of giants and of humans. Mnemosyne, guardian of the Eleutherai hills, joined with the son of Cronos on Pieria, and bore the Muses to shun evil and dispel distress. For 9 nights, Counselor Zeus mixed with her in her sacred bed, away from the other gods. A year later, after the cycle of the seasons and the passing of many months and days, she bore 9 like-minded maidens, their breasts filled with song, their spirits free of woe, near the highest peak of snowy Olympus, a place of splendid choruses and beautiful mansions, where the Charites and Imeros have their homes and festivities. Their lovely voices celebrate the laws and customs of all the immortals in the songs they send forth. On their way to Olympus, their beautiful voices filled the air with a divine song. The black earth echoed as they sang, and a lovely noise rose beneath their feet as they went to see their father, Lord of the heavens and wielder of the fiery thunderbolt, who defeated his father Kronos and distributed fairly the powers and honors to the immortals. These were the songs of the Muses, whose homes were on Olympus, the 9 daughters of great Zeus: Clio, Euterpe, Thalia, Melpomene, Terpsichore, Erato, Polymnia, Aurania, and Calliope, who was superior to all, for she also accompanied revered kings. When a Zeus nourished king is born, great Zeus' daughters honor him by pouring sweet dewdrops on his tongue, so words flow like honey from his mouth. All his people look upon him as he solves disputes with sound judgment, and his eloquent and truthful words quickly and fairly resolve even the bitterest conflict. This is why kings are wise, for when people do harm in the assembly, kings easily halt calls for revenge and appease both sides with gentle words. In markets, they treat him with deference like a god, and he stands out in a crowd. Such are the gifts given to mortals by the Muses. Muses and far-shooting Apollo bring singers and lyre players to the earth, but Zeus makes kings, and mortals loved by the Muses are blessed, for sweet words flow from their mouths. If a singer who serves the Muses sings about the famous deeds of ancient men and women and the blessed gods who live on Olympus, then mortals whose souls are fresh with pain and whose hearts burn with grief will instantly forget their suffering and pain, diverted by the gifts of the goddesses. Welcome, children of Zeus. Sing to me a lovely song, a song of the divine race of immortals who always are, those born of Gaia, starry Uranus, and dark Nyx, and nourished by salty Pontus. Tell us how the gods and earth first came to be, and the rivers, the infinite seas that swell with rage, the shining stars, and the wide heavens above. Tell us how the gods were born, givers of fortune, how they divided riches and distributed honors, and how they first took craggy Olympus. Start at the beginning, Muses with homes on Olympus, and tell me, who was born first? First there was Chaos, then broad-chested Gaia, the steadfast seat of all immortals who live upon the snowy peaks of Olympus. Then murky Tartarus, in the depths of the wide earth, and Eros, most beautiful of the immortal gods, who weakens the limbs and overwhelms the minds and wise counsel in the breast of all gods and humans. Footnote: Eros is desire. End of footnote. Chaos gave birth to Erebus and Black Nyx, and from Nyx came Aether and Hemera, conceived after Nyx joined in love with Erebus. Footnote: Erebus is darkness, Aether is upper sky or air that the gods breathe. Hemera is day. End of footnote. First, Gaia bore starry Uranus, her equal, to envelop her on all sides so she would be the ever-secure home for the blessed gods. Then she bore tall Aurea. Footnote: the Aurea are 10 gods who personify different mountains, including Olympus, Helikon, and Etna, The Roman equivalent of the Odia are called montes, which is the origin of the word mountains. End of footnote. Pleasant refuge for the goddess nymphs of the mountain forests and the sterile, swelling seas of Pontus. All of these she bore alone. Then she bedded Auranus and bore deep whirling Oceanus. Coius, Crius, Hyperion, Iapetus, Thea, Rhea, Themis, Mnemosyne, golden-crowned Phoebe, and fair Tethys. Then wily Cronos was born, her youngest and most dreadful child, who hated his fearsome father. Then she bore the violent-hearted Cyclops, Brontes, Steropes, and spirited Arges. They gave thunder to Zeus and built thunderbolts, and they looked like the gods in every way but one. They had only one eye in the middle of their foreheads. Because of this single circular eye, they were called Cyclopes. A footnote. The Greek word for Cyclopes is Eleutherai, which means round or circular. End of quote. Their strength was great, as was their craft. But Gaia and Uranus gave birth to 3 unspeakable, huge, and powerful sons: Codus, Briareus, and Aegas, arrogant children. From their shoulders sprang 100 monstrous arms, with 50 heads on each pair of sturdy shoulders, and immense strength in their massive forms. These were the worst of all those born to Gaia and Auranus. Their father hated them from the moment they were born and hid them all in a secret corner of Gaia, never allowing them into the light, and Auranus rejoiced at his foul work. But Gaia groaned at the strain within her depths and devised a wicked plan. She quickly made a large scythe using gray, impenetrable steel and showed it to her children. Then she said to them, as her heart grieved, quote, "My children, born to a wicked father, if you choose to obey, then avenge your father's foul disgrace, for he was the first to plot evil deeds." End quote. So she said, but fear seized them, and no one said a word. But crooked counselor Cronos boldly answered his noble mother, saying, quote, "Mother, I pledge to complete this task. I do not care about our despicable father, for he was the first to plot evil deeds." End quote. Hearing this, colossal Gaia rejoiced in her heart. She hid Cronos in an ambush, put a sharp-toothed sword in his hands, and explained to him the whole plan. When Auranus came, towing Night, he stretched himself out over Gaia, desiring her love. Cronos reached out with his left hand, took the jagged-toothed sickle in his right, and quickly cut off his dear father's genitals and threw them behind him. But they did not fall in vain, for all the blood-red drops that fell were caught by Gaia, and in time she bore the mighty Ares, the great giants with bright armor and long spears, and the nymphs called Meliae across the endless earth. Footnote: the Ares are the Furies. End quote. Soon after the genitals were cut by the sickle and thrown into the agitated sea, they were carried through the water for a long time, and a white foam sprang from the deathless flesh, and inside grew a young woman. First she came to sacred Cythera, and then to sea-bathed Cyprus, where a beautiful goddess emerged with grass growing around her slender feet. Gods and mortals call her Aphrodite, for she was born from the sea foam and fair-crowned Cytherea, for she reached Cythera, and also Cyprogenes, for she was born on sea-bathed Cyprus and Philommenes, for she sprang from genitals. Footnote: Philommedes literally means lover of genitals. End of footnote. Eros followed her, and fairy Meros stayed with her from the moment she was born until she joined the race of the gods. She had this honor from the beginning, and obtained by lot from humans and immortal gods the secrets, smiles, deceptions, sweet delights, friendliness, and gentleness of young women. Their father, great Uranus, rejected his sons and nicknamed them Titans, for he said they foolishly stretched to commit a great deed and would one day pay a price for their actions. Footnote: the word Titan comes from the Greek word titano, which means to stretch, extend, or exert oneself. In other words, Uranus is saying that the Titans went too far in their attack on him and would be punished for it one day. End of footnote. Nyx, though she had not slept with any other gods, bore terrible Moros, black cur, and Thanatos, Hypnos, the tribe of the Oneiroi, and Momus, deadly Oasis, and the deadly Hesperides, who cared for the beautiful golden apples and the trees that bore them beyond the famed Oceanus. Footnote: Moros is doom, Cur is deadly fate, Thanatos is death, Hypnos is sleep, Oneiroi is dreams, Momus is satire or mockery, Oisius is misery, Hesperides is evening. End of footnote. She also bore the Morai and the pitilessly punishing Charis, Clotho, Lachesis, and Atropos, who assign good and evil to mortals at birth, who pursue the wrongs of both mortals and gods, and who never abandoned their terrible fury until they gave their dire punishments to wrongdoers. Footnote: Moirai and Charis are both terms representing the fates. The three fates mentioned here each perform a specific task when a child is born. Clotho spins the thread of life, Lachesis measures the allotted thread time each life is given, and Atropos cuts the thread of life. End quote. And deathly Nyx bore Nemesis, bringing woe to mortals, and then bore Apati, Philaudes, mournful Garrus, and hearted Eris. And the hated Eris bore woeful Ponos, Lethe, Lemos, the lamentable Algae, the Hismenae, and the Machae, the Phoni, the Androctaceae, the Nicia, the Sudea, the Logoi, the Amphilochia, the Dysnomia, Ati, all similar to each other, and Horkos, who brings great misery to mortals when someone willingly swears a false oath. Footnote: Ponos is hardship and toil, Lethe is forgetfulness, Limos is starvation, Algaea is pain, Hismenae and Machae are various aspects of battle and combat, Phonoi is murder, Androctaceae is manslaughter, Nicia is argument, Sudea is lies, Logoi is stories, Amphilochia is disputes, Dysnomia is anarchy, Ate is hate and ruin, and Horkos is oath. End of footnote. Pontus' father truthful and sincere, Nerus, his oldest child. They call him Old Man, for he is gentle and kind, never forgets customs, and makes fair and honest plans. Then he mixed again with Gaia, and bore great Thalmos, arrogant forces, fair-cheeked Ceto, and Erubia, whose heart is made of steel. Many children, all greatly desired, were born in the barren sea to Nerus and fair-haired Doris, daughter of ever-circling ocean. Protho, Eucronte, Sao, Amphitrite, and Eudora, Thetis, Galene, Glauce, and Simothei, swift Speo, beautiful Thalia, Pasithea, Erato, rosy-armed Eunice, charming Melite, Iolamine, Agave, Doto, Proto, Verusa, Dynamene, Nisei, Actae, Protomedie, Doris, Panope, lovely Galatia, fair Hippothoi, rosy-armed Hipponoi, and Samidosi, who, along with Samitology and fine-angled Amphitrite, calmed the dark sea waves and the stormy wind blasts. And Simo, Ion, fair-crowned Halimede, smiling Loconome, Pontoporea, and Liagore, Usagore, Laomedea, Polinoi, and Antonoi, Lucianassa, Iurnon, who is fine in figure and blameless in beauty, and Samath, who is beautiful in body, and divine Menippe, Nesso, Upompi, Themisto, Pronoeo, and Nemertis, who has the mind of her immortal father. These came from the illustrious Nerus, 50 daughters, all able to do great work. Thoma wed Electra, deep-flowing Oceanus' daughter, and she bore swift Iris and the fair Harpies, Aelo and Ocypete, who had swift wings and soared high up in the air like the wind or the birds. To Phorcys, Cato bore the fair-cheeked, gray-haired Graii, so called by mortals and immortals alike, fine-robed Pamphredo and saffron-veiled Enyo, and she bore the Gorgons, who live beyond famed Oceanus, at the edge of Nyx, where the clear-voiced Hesperides dwell, the immortal and ageless Stheno and Uriel, and the mortal Medusa, who met a foul end. Dark-haired Poseidon slept with Medusa in a soft meadow surrounded by spring flowers. When Perseus beheaded her, out sprang great Chrysaor and the horse Pegasus, one named for the sword he held, the other for being born beside the waters of Oceanus. Footnote: the Greek word Pegai means water. End footnote. Pegasus left the earth, mother of sheep, and flew to the immortals, and he lives in Zeus' house, bringing thunder and lightning to Counselor Zeus. Chrysaor joined with Callirrhoe, great daughter of Oceanus, and she bore three-headed Geryon, who was killed by mighty Heracles beside his tottering cattle on the sea-bathed Erythrae, on the day he drove the broad-chested cattle across the Oceanus streams to sacred Tiryns, and killed Orthus and herdsman Erytheon in the dark stable across famed Oceanus. Ceto also bore in a hollow cave another terrible monster, who is unlike any mortal or immortal god, divine, dauntless Echidna, who is one-half fair-eyed, beautiful nymph, and one-half terrible, quick-moving serpent who eats raw flesh in the hidden places under the earth. Her cave is beneath a hollow boulder, far from immortal gods and mortal humans. There the gods assigned pitiful Echidna glorious houses to live in, and the immortal and ageless nymph keeps watch among the Arima under the earth. It is said that the quick-glancing maiden Echidna, joined with terrible, violent, and lawless Typhon, became pregnant and bore fearsome children. First came the Orthrus, Gerion's dog, when she bore the unimaginable, unspeakable Cerberus, eater of raw flesh, the bronze-voiced dog of Hades, 50-headed, merciless, and mighty. Then she bore foul-minded Hydra of Lerna, reared by the white-armed goddess Hera, when she was monstrously angry with mighty Heracles. But Heracles, son of Zeus and of Amphitryon, slew the Hydra with pitiless bronze, aided by warlike Iolaus and plunderer of Athena's council. And Echidna bore the invincible, fire-breathing Chimera, terrible, huge, swift, and powerful. She had 3 heads, a savage lion, a she-goat, and a serpent, a mighty dragon. Her front was lion, her middle was goat, her back was serpent, and she breathed terrible fire. She was slain by Pegasus and noble Bellerophon. Chimera subdued Orthrus, bore deadly Sphinx, scourge of the Cadmeans, and the Nemean lion, the bane of mortals, whom Hera, glorious wife of Zeus, raised and sent to live in Nemea. While dwelling there, it laid waste to the mortal races and ruled Traidos in Nemea and Apizes, but the strength of Hercules overpowered it. Keto made love to Phorcys and bore her youngest child, a terrible snake, who guards the golden apples in the dark places at the end of the world. These, then, are the children of Keto and Phorcys. Tethys bore to Oceanus the twisting rivers, Nilus, Alpheus, the deep swirling Eridanos, Strymon, Meander, beautiful flowing Ister, Phasis, Rhesus, the silver waving Achelous, Nessus, Rhodius, Halimon, Herpetaurus, Granicus, Aesepus, divine Simois, Peneus, Hermes, fair flowing Casus, the great Sangarius, Ladon, Parthenius, Unius, Aldicius, and the divine Scamander. And she bore divine daughters who raised young boys into men, along with Lord Apollo and Potamoi, for this was Zeus' charge to them. Patho, Admete, Ianthe, Electra, Doris, Primno, divine formed Orania, Hippo, Clymene, Rhodia, Calorho, Zizu, Clyde, Idei, Pasitho, Plexaura, Galaxora, welcoming Dion, Melibosis, Tho, shapely Polydora, fair-formed Circes, doe-eyed Pluto, Perses, Ionera, Acast, Xanthi, charming Petreia, Menisto, Europa, Medes, Eurynomy, saffron-veiled Callisto, Chryses, Asia, fair Calypso, Eudora, Tyche, Amphiro, Oserho, and Styx, who is without a doubt the greatest of them all. These were the oldest of the maidens born to Oceanus and Tethys, but there are many others, 3,000 thin-ankled daughters of Oceanus spread across the earth and watery depths, all equal, shining children of goddesses. And many other loud-flowing rivers, sons of Oceanus were born to Queen Tethys. Their names are difficult for a mortal to recite, but each is known by those who dwell near them. And Theia, taken in love by Hyperion, bore great Helios, bright Selene, and Eos, who shines for all mortals upon the earth and for the gods who hold the broad heavens. And Eurybia, divine among goddesses, joined in love with Crius and bore great Astraeus, Pallas, and Persis, famed for his knowledge. And Eos, a goddess in love with a god, bore to Astraeus the violent winds, clearing Zephyrus, swift-moving Boreas, and Notus. After this, Eos bore early-born Hesperus and the shining stars that crown the heavens. Oceanus' daughter Styx mixed with Pallas and bore in her place Zelus, beautiful ankled Nike, Kratos, and Bia, famous children all. They have no house but the house of Zeus, no seat, and no path besides the one the god gives them, and always sit beside thundering Zeus. So Styx, immortal daughter of Oceanus, decided on the day the Olympian hurler of lighting called all mortal gods to great Olympus, and said that whoever fights against the Titans would not lose their privileges and would retain all their honors among the immortal gods, and those who were denied honor by Kronos would gain honor and privilege, as is their right. So incorruptible Styx and her children, following her father's plan, were first to go to Olympus, and Zeus honored her and gave her great gifts, making her the great oath of the gods, and keeping her children beside him from that day on. And everything that he promised, he fulfilled, and he himself rules with greatness and might. Footnote: the gods swore all their oaths upon the Styx. End of quote. Phoebe came to the much desired bed of Coeus, and the goddess, pregnant with a god's love, bore dark-robed Leto, always gentle and kind both to humans and to the immortal gods, gentle from the start, and kindest of those on Olympus. Phoebe also bore honorable Asteria, from Perses, led to his great house to become his loving wife. Asteria bore Hecate, whom Zeus, Cronos' son, honored above all others. He gave her splendid gifts, a portion of the earth and the sterile sea, a share of the honor from the starry skies, and the highest honors from the immortal gods. Now, whenever humans upon the earth pray for favors by offering beautiful sacrifices, they call on Hecate. Much honor follows the ones whose prayers the goddess kindly accepts, and fortune follows those so blessed, such is her power. For all those born to Gaia and Uranus were granted honors, and Hecate had her share too. Nor did the son of Cronos seek to deprive her of any honor she received from the Titans, and she retains all she was given in the beginning. Nor does this goddess, an only child, have fewer honors on the earth, in the sky, or in the sea. In fact, she has more Zeus himself honors her. When she comes and proudly aids someone, that person will surpass all others in the assembly. When men arm themselves for deadly combat, the goddess stands beside her chosen side, eager to grant victory and extend glory. She stands beside revered kings during trials. She stands beside horsemen that she chooses, and she stands beside and helps those competing in contests. And when one gains victory by strength or force, he carries his prize with ease and joy and honors his parents. And to those who work the gusty gray sea and pray to Hecate and the roaring earth shaker, the great goddess easily grants a great haul of fish, and just as easily takes it away, if her spirit so wishes. And along with Hermes, she excels at increasing livestock in pens, herds of cattle, and white goats, and flocks of woolly sheep. She can strengthen a herd or flock or weaken it, whatever her spirit desires. And though she is her mother's only child, she is granted honors among the immortals. And Cronos' son made her nurse to all children who see with their eyes the light of all-seeing Eos. Thus, she was a nurse from the very start, and these are her honors. Rhea was tamed by Cronos and bore him glorious children: Hestia, Demeter, golden-sandaled Hera, mighty Hades, whose ruthless heart lived beneath the earth, the loud-sounding earth-shaker, and counselor Zeus, father of gods and mortals, whose thunder shakes the wide earth. Great Cronos gulped the children down as soon as they emerged from kneeling Rhea's divine womb. He wished to prevent Uranos' famed children from becoming king over the immortals, for he learned from Gaia and starry Uranos that, though he was strong, his own son was fated to overthrow him through the plans of great Zeus. Thus he kept constant watch and swallowed his children whole, bringing Rhea great grief. So when she was about to bear Zeus, father of gods and mortals, she begged her dear parents, Gaia and starry Uranus, to devise a plan to let her bear her child in secret and avenge her father's fury and the fury of her children, whom wily Cronos had swallowed. They listened to their dear daughter and obeyed her, revealing to her all that was destined to happen to King Cronos and his stout-hearted son. Then they sent her to Lyctus in the rich lands of Crete, when she was ready to bear her youngest, great Zeus. Once there, gigantic Gaia would receive him, nurse him, and raise him. So Rhea carried him through the quick black night to Lyctus, took him in her hands, and hid him in a cave deep within holy Gaia, in the dense forest of Mount Aegeon. Then she took a stone, wrapped it in swaddling clothes, and gave it to Uranus' son, the Titan king. He grabbed the stone and swallowed it cruelly, unaware that his son remained free and troubled and would one day overpower him, drive him from his place of honor, and become king of the immortals. Lord Zeus' strength and glorious limbs grew quickly, and after a year's time, thanks to Gaia's elegant deception, great crooked counselor Cronos vomited up his children, defeated by his son's plan and his might. First, Cronos vomited up the stone. Since he had swallowed it last, Zeus took the stone and placed it in sacred Pytho, in the valleys around Parnassus, to be a sign of wonder for mortals from that point on. Footnote: Pytho is the ancient name for Delphi, so the stone in question is the Omphalos stone at Delphi. End of footnote. Then he freed his uncles, the Cyclops, sons of Uranus, from the bonds Cronos foolishly inflicted upon them. In return for his kindness, they gave him thunder, blasting thunderbolts, and lightning, which before Gaia had concealed. With these, Zeus rules over mortals and immortals. Iapetus married Clymene, Oceanus' fair-ankled daughter, went to bed with her, and she bore stout-hearted Atlas, illustrious Menoetus, shrewd and sly Prometheus, and scatterbrained Epimetheus, who became the bane of all mortals who work for their bread, for he was the first to accept Zeus' molded maiden. Footnote: Pandora. End of footnote. Far-seeing Zeus hurled arrogant Menoetus down to Erebus with a thunderbolt because of his foolishness and his reckless vanity. Atlas is forced to stand at the ends of the earth in front of the clear-voiced Hesperides and hold up the wide heavens with his head and tireless arms. For this is the fate of Counselor Zeus assigned to him. And Zeus bound wily Prometheus in painful, unbreakable chains that were driven through the middle of a pillar, and he sent a wide-winged eagle to eat his immortal liver. But each night the liver grew back, as much as the wide-winged bird had eaten that day. But Heracles, son of fair-ankled Alcmene, killed the eagle, repelling the foul fate of Iapetus' son, freeing him from suffering, and adding to Theban-born Heracles great glory upon the bountiful earth. High-ruling Olympian Zeus approved, for he wished to honor his revered son, and so gave up the anger he held against Prometheus for matching wits with Cronos' mighty son. For when gods and mortals met in Mycone, Prometheus cleverly divided a great ox and set it before him, hoping to deceive Zeus. First, he set down before him flesh and rich, fat entrails, and hid them in the ox's stomach. Then he cleverly set down the white ox bones and covered them with shining fat. Then the father of gods and mortals said to him, quote, "Dear son of Iapetus, noblest of all the gods, you have divided the portions unfairly." End quote. So said all-knowing Zeus, mocking him. But with a smile, crooked counselor Prometheus replied to him, not forgetting his clever trick. Quote, "Glorious Zeus, greatest of all immortals, choose whichever one your heart desires." End quote. So he said deceptively. All-knowing Zeus spotted the deception, but he desired evil for mortals, which he would fulfill. He took the white fat with both hands, and when he saw the white ox bones and realized the deception, he exploded with rage, his mind filled with malice. Ever since then, the mortals burn white bones on smoking altars in offering to the gods. And a fuming cloud gatherer Zeus told him, quote, "So, dear son of Iapetus, noblest of all the gods, you did not forget your clever tricks after all." End quote. So spoke an angry, all-knowing Zeus, and because of this deception, he refused to give the might of eternal fire to the ash trees for mortals who live upon the earth. Footnote: this relates to an early belief that fire lived within trees, and ash trees were very common in Greece. End quote. But the son of Iapetus tricked Zeus again by stealing the far shining gleam of eternal fire in a hollow fennel stalk. It burned deep in high thundering Zeus's soul when he saw the fire shining gleam of fire among mortals. So he devised a wicked punishment for humans. Following the plans of Cronos' son, famed Hephaestus molded from earth a beautiful girl. Then the gray-eyed goddess Athena dressed her in silvery clothes and covered her head with a finely crafted veil, a true wonder. Around her head, Pallas Athena first placed a garland of fresh flowers of the meadow to arouse desire, and then added a golden diadem made by the hands of the lame one, Hephaestus, to please Zeus, his father. On this he added many finely made designs, terrible beasts that the land and sea nourish. He made many of these, each one a shimmering miracle, as real as a living, speaking creature. When he had built this fine but evil creature, the price for fire, he led her out to the other gods and mortals, resplendent in the adornments of Zeus's gray-eyed daughter. Gods and men alike were awed when they saw the steep deception which men could never control. For she was mother to the race of females who live with men but are their greatest foe, always a friend of luxury, never of poverty. Just as bees in roofed beehives feed drones, their partners in their foul deeds, every day, all day long, until the sun goes down, the bees hurry about building their white honeycombs, while the drones sit inside the roofed beehives, feeding their stomachs on the toil of others. So also did high-thundering Zeus create women to be the bane of mortal men, partners in painful deeds. And he exchanged another good for evil. He who flees marriage and women's foul deeds and refuses to marry comes to old age deprived of a caretaker. When he leaves, he lacks nothing, but when he dies, his relatives divide his fortune. The man who marries a worthy wife, one whose mind is similar to his own, will see good and evil in balance throughout his life. But the man who takes a troublemaker for a wife will know endless, incurable pain in his mind and heart during his life. Thus, no one can deceive the mind of Zeus. Not even Iapetus' son, gracious Prometheus, could escape a foul fate, for despite his sharp mind, a terrible burden holds him down. When Uranus first grew angry with Briareus, Codus, and Gyges, he bound them in strong chains, for he hated their arrogance, their looks, and their size, and he made them live beneath the broad earth. So they sat below at the earth's edge, living in pain and suffering greatly, their hearts filled with grief. But the son of Cronos and the other immortals born in love to fair-haired Rhea and Cronos returned them to the light with the advice of Gaia, who told them the whole story and showed them how these creatures would help them win and gain great glory. The Titans and those born to Cronos would battle against one another for a very long time and suffer greatly. The Titans from high Orthres and from Olympus, the gods, who bring good things and who were born to fair-haired Rhea after sleeping with Cronos. For 10 long years they fought one another, their spirits filled with rage, and there was no resolution in sight, for both sides were evenly divided and the war's outcome was uncertain. But when Zeus offered the Hecatoncheires nectar and ambrosia, which the gods themselves eat, their hearts and spirits were lifted. Footnote: ambrosia is the food of the gods, and nectar is the drink. End quote. The Father of gods and mortals addressed them and said to them, quote, "Listen to me, bright children of Gaia and Uranus, so I can say what is in my heart. We have battled every day for a long time, each seeking victory and power, the Titans and we gods who were born from Cronos. So use your great strength and untouchable hands and fight with us against the Titans, for we are your kind friends who freed you from your painful bonds and brought you out of the bitter dark and into the light." End quote. So he said, and at once great Codus replied, quote, "Noble sir, you say what we already know. We know your mind and thoughts are superior, and you defend the gods against icy ruin. Your wisdom, Lord son of Cronos, brought us out of the gloomy darkness and freed us from unrelenting bonds, which we hope never to experience again. Thus, with clear minds and eager spirits, we vow to defend your power against the Titans in dread battle." End quote. And so he said, and the gods who give glory heard his words and approved. Their hearts desired war more than ever before, and on that day all readied for battle, men and women, the Titan gods and the children of Cronos, as well as those defiantly strong beings Zeus brought back to the light from Erebus under the earth, each of them with 100 arms coming out of their shoulders, and 50 heads growing from their shoulders on top of their giant limbs. They took their places against the Titans, wielding enormous stones in their large hands. But the Titans quickly reinforced their battle lines, and both sides readied their mighty hands. The endless seas echoed around them, the great earth rumbled, the heavens groaned, and high Olympus shook from the ground up as the immortals charged, and the rumble and cries reached all the way to the deep Tartarus. So it was that the two sides hurled their terrible spears at each other, their encouraging shouts reaching the starry skies as the two sides converged. Zeus unleashed the full fury of his heart and the full force of his might. From both the sky and from Olympus, he hurled a constant barrage of lightning bolts, and the bolts, like a twisting fire, flew closely packed out of his gigantic hands, along with the flash and thunder. All over, the life-giving earth burned black. A loud crackling filled the vast forest, and the earth, and the streams of Oceanus, and the seas all boiled. The hot flames encircled earth-born Titans and reached the heavenly ether, and for all their power, their eyes were blinded by the flashing light of the bolts. Divine heat took hold of chaos that looked to the eyes and sounded to the ears like Gaia and Uranus making love. The great sound that rose up when he pressed down upon her from on high. The sound of gods converging in passion. And the wind stirred a torrent of dust that mixed with the thunderbolts and lightning, the weapons of great Zeus, and these carried the cries and shouts into the center between the two sides, and a terrifying noise of battle rose up, and mighty deeds were revealed. Then the battle turned. Earlier they had converged on each other and fought steadily, but then Codus, Briareus, and battle-crazed Gyges rose up from the front lines and hurled 300 boulders from their massive hands, one after another, and overwhelmed the Titans with their blows, defeating them and sending them down beneath the earth and binding them there. As far below the earth as the sky is above the earth, that is the drop from earth to murky Tartarus. A bronze anvil falling from the sky for 9 days and nights would reach the earth on the 10th day, and the same anvil falling from the earth for 9 days and nights would reach Tartarus on the 10th. A bronze barrier surrounds Tartarus, and night is poured around its neck in 3 rows, and above it grows the roots of the earth and the sterile sea. This is the murky netherworld where the Titan gods were hidden by design of cloud-gatherer Zeus, and by a place at the very ends of the wide earth. There is no escape, for Poseidon placed a bronze gate around it, and a wall surrounds it on all sides. This is where Gyges, Codus, and great-hearted Briareus live, the guards of aegis-bearing Zeus. And this is the source and limits of the dark earth, murky Tartarus, the barren sea, the starry heavens, dank, a terrible place that even the gods abhor, a great chasm. Those who come inside the gates could never reach the chasm's end, even in a full year, for they would be blown this way and that way by one storm after another, monstrous even for the immortal gods. And it is here where the palaces of Nyx can be found, shrouded in black clouds. It is here where Atlas, son of Hippias, stands immobile, holding the white heavens with his head and sturdy hands, and Nyx and Hemera cross paths and greet each other as they pass the great bronze threshold, one going out the door and the other coming in, for both cannot be in the house at the same time. For one leaves the house to pass around the earth, while the other remains in the house, waiting for her journey to begin. Hemera carries light for the earth. The other holds in her hands Hypnos, brother of Thanatos, deadly Nyx, shrouded in clouds. And here Nyx's children have their homes. Hypnos and Thanatos, feared gods. Bright Helios never shines his light upon them when he rises in the sky or when he sets in the sky. Hypnos travels gently over the earth and wide seas, soothing human beings, but Thanatos has an iron heart and brazen soul, and when he takes hold of a human, he does not let go. He is hated even by the immortal gods. And here stands the echoing palaces of the god of the underworld, stout Hades and terrible Persephone. A fearsome dog ruthlessly guards the gates, using a nasty trick. He wags his tail and ears at those going in, but watches them carefully and does not let them leave, devouring those trying to go out the gates of stout Hades and terrible Persephone. Footnote: Cerberus. End footnote. And here lives a goddess loathed by immortals, terrible Styx, oldest daughter of ebbing Oceanus. She lives aloof from other gods in a famous palace with a large rock roof and silver pillars on all sides that reach to the heavens. Thalma, daughter, swift-footed Iris, rarely travels under the broad back of the sea to deliver her messages. When strife or quarrel stirs between the gods, or when one with mansions on Olympus lies, Zeus will send Iris to bring back a golden jug filled with the great oath of the gods, the many-named icy water that pours down from a high rock, flowing under the wide earth along the holy river, a branch of Oceanus, a tenth of which is given to Styx. 9 parts flow all over the earth, and the seas wide back in silver, whirling spools before falling into the sea. But 1 part flows from her rock, a great misery for the gods. Immortals with homes on Olympus' snowy peaks, who swear false oaths after pouring Stygian waters, will lie breathless for an entire year, taking no ambrosia or nectar as sustenance, but lying spread out on a bed, breathless and speechless, enveloped in a foul coma. When the punishment ends after a full year, the gods receive another, even worse test. 9 years of exile from the eternal gods, their councils, and their feasts. But in the 10th year, the gods can mingle with others who have homes in Olympus. This is the oath that the gods take with Styx' primeval waters, which pour out from the rugged place. And here are found the limits of the dark earth and of dark Tartarus, and the barren sea and the starry skies, one after another. Terrible places that even the gods abhor. And here are the marble gates and a movable bronze door that is bound to the earth with self-grown roots. And here the Titans live, separated from all other gods, and the far edges of murky chaos. The famed allies of loud thundering Zeus also live here, far below the floor of Oceanus, Codus and Gyges, but earth-shaker Poseidon made noble Briareus his son-in-law by giving him Cymopolia, his daughter, to marry. After Zeus drove the Titans from heaven, huge Gaia joined with Tartarus and bore her youngest child, Typhon, aided by golden Aphrodite. His hands were strong and capable of great deeds, and his feet were tireless. 100 snakeheads sat on his shoulders, fearsome dragons with dark flickering tongues. Fire speckled from the eyes on each divine head, and with each look his eyes burned fire. The voices in all the heads produced indescribable sounds. At times they made sounds the gods could misunderstand, and other times they bellowed loudly like a giant bull with unbelievable strength, or roared like a proud lion, or cried like a litter of puppies, amazing to behold, or they hissed and made the tall mountains echo. And terrible deeds would have happened on that day, and Typhon would have ruled over mortals and gods alike had Zeus, father of gods and mortals, not been watching. He thundered loud and hard, and the earth shook violently, as did the heavens above, and the seas, and the oceanic streams, and deep Tartarus. As Lord Zeus rushed ahead, all Olympus shook under his immortal feet, and the earth groaned. Beneath them, the violet sea was consumed by the heat of the thunder and lightning, and the monstrous flames and winds and blazing bolts. And the earth, sea, and sky all boiled, and the force of the immortals sent great waves crashing over the seashores, and an endless quake arose. And Hades, lord of the underworld, and the Titans in Tartarus around Kronos trembled in fear of the endless noise and terrible battle strife. When Zeus had raised his might and taken his weapons, thunder and lightning, he leapt from Olympus onto the terrifying monster and burnt all of his divine heads. Once empowered by striking blows, Typhon fell over lame, and the wide earth groaned. And as he struck, flames flew from the thunderbolt lord in the dark, rocky mountain dells, and this awesome blast burnt much of the wide earth and melted it like a tin that skilled young men heat in well-pierced melting pots, or like iron, the strongest of things, tamed in the mountain dells by blazing fire, and melted in the divine earth by skilled Hesiodʹs. So the fire melted in the earth, and with rage in his heart, Zeus hurled Typhon into broad Tartarus. From Typhon comes the might of the moist blowing winds, separate from Notus and Boreas, and clean Zephyrus, which are born of the gods and a profit for mortals. The other winds blow rashly over the seas, bringing violent storms to murky waters and great woes to mortals. They blow this way and that, scattering ships and killing sailors, and mortals who encounter them on the seas are helpless against them. Even on the boundless, florid earth, they lay waste to the beautiful works of humans, filling them with dust and painful uproar. When the blessed gods finished their work and settled by force their battle with the Titans over honor, then with Gaia's counsel they urged far-seeing Zeus to become king and rule over all immortals, and he divided their honors among them. Zeus, king of the gods, took as his first wife Metis, who knows more than any other god or mortal. But when she was about to give birth to gleaming-eyed goddess Athena, he deceived her with cunning words by putting Athena into his belly, taking the advice of Gaia and starry Uranus. They prophesied that one of the other immortal gods would hold the honors of king instead of Zeus, for Metis would one day bear very wise children. First, she would bear gleaming-eyed Tradigenia, who had strength and wisdom equal to her father, and then a son, a king of gods and mortals, with a violent heart. But before this happened, Zeus put Athena in his own belly, so the goddess would advise him on good and evil. His second marriage was to shining Themis, who bore the hoary Eunomia, Dike, and prosperous Irene, who protected the works of mortals, and the Morai, Clotho, Lachesis, and Atropos, to whom Counselor Zeus gives the greatest honor, for they give mortal humans both good and evil. Footnote: Eunomia is lawlessness, Dike is justice, Irene is peace, Hore is seasons, the passage of time, Eunomia is order, Dike is justice, and Irene is peace. Then Eurynomé, beautiful daughter of Oceanus, bore for him the three fair-cheeked Charities, Aglaea, Euphrosyne, and charming Thalia. Limb-relaxing desire falls from their eyes at every glance, for they are beautiful to behold under their brows. Then beautiful Demeter came to his bed, and bore white-armed Persephone, taken from her mother by Hades with the approval of Counselor Zeus. Then he fell in love with fair-haired Mnemosyne, and she bore the 9 Muses with golden bands, who delight in festivals and the joy of song. Then Aegis-bearing Zeus joined in love with Leto, and she bore Apollo and Artemis, shedder of arrows, loveliest of all Auranos' children. Finally, Zeus made Hera his flourishing wife, and she joined in love with the king of gods and mortals, and bore Hebe, Ares, and Eileithyia. Zeus bore from his own head bright-eyed Athena, the reversed ruser of terrible war and untiring leader who delights in the chaos of battle. This made Hera furious, so without mingling in love, she bore famed Hephaestus, whose skilled hands surpassed all of Auranos' children. And Amphitrite bore for the loud-roaring earth-shaker, great and mighty Triton, who holds the sea bottom and dwells in a golden palace with his dear mother and lordly father, a feared god. And Cytherea bore for his shield-piercing Ares terrible Phobos and Deimos, who drive the battle lines of men into confusion, with Ares, destroyer of cities, and Harmonia, who became wife of Cadmus. Footnote: Phobos is fear, and Deimos is terror. End of footnote. And Zeus took Maia, daughter of Atlas, to bed, and she bore famed Hermes, herald of the gods. Semele, daughter of Cadmus, joined with Zeus and bore beautiful Dionysus, a mortal woman, bearing an immortal son, but now both are gods. And Alcmene joined in love with cloud-gatherer Zeus and gave birth to the mighty Heracles. And Hephaestus, famed for his twisted legs, took as wife Aglaea, youngest of the Charities. And golden-haired Dionysus took as his wife blonde Ariadne, Minos' daughter, and the son of Cronos made her immortal for his sake. The strong son of fair-ankled Alcmene, mighty Hercules, took Hebe, daughter of great Zeus, and golden-haired, sandaled Hera as his revered wife on snowy Olympus, after completing his painful tasks, for he now lives unharmed and ageless among the immortals for the rest of his days. And Perseis, famed daughter of Oceanus, bore Circe and King Aeetes for untiring Helios. Aeetes, son of light-bearing Helios, married the daughter of unending river Oceanus, beautiful-cheeked Rhea, by will of the gods. And she, overcome by the passion of golden Aphrodite gave birth to fair-cheeked Medea. Now farewell to you with homes on Olympus, and the islands, mainlands, and salt seas within. Now, sweet-voiced Olympian muses, daughters of aegis-bearing Zeus, sing of the race of goddesses, those who lay in beds with immortals and mortals, and who bore children equal to the gods. The divine goddess Demeter mingled in love with heroic Hesiod in a thrice-plowed field in Crete's bountiful lands, and bore noble Plutus, who travels all over the earth and the wide seas back. Whoever happens upon him and comes into his arms is made rich, for he grants them great wealth. Footnote: Plutus is the god of wealth. His name is the origin of the word plutocracy, rule by the wealthy. End of footnote. Harmonia, golden Aphrodite's daughter, bore to Cadmus Ino, Semele, fair-cheeked Agave, and Autonoe, who married long-haired Aristeus and Polydorus in fair-meadowed Thebes. Callirrhoe, daughter of Oceanus, mingled in Aphrodite's love with stout-hearted Chrysaor, and bore the strongest of all mortals, Geryon, who was killed by mighty Hercules over his oxen with rolling feet in sea-girt Erythea. And Eos bore to Tithonus bronze-helmed Memnon, Ethiopian king and lord Emathion, but to Cephalus she bore a shining sun, strong Patheon, a god among mortals. When he was a delicate child in the soft bloom of youth, laughter-loving Aphrodite snatched him up and made him the night guardian of her sacred temples, a divine spirit. By will of the immortal gods, Jason, Aeson's son, led the daughter of Zeus' blessed king Aeetes away from completing the many grueling tasks assigned to him by the arrogant king, the violent-minded Peleus. After enduring many hardships, he came to Iolcus in a swift ship with glancing-eyed Medea, daughter of Aeetes, and made her his blushing bride. She joined in love with Jason, shepherd of the people, and bore Medus, who was raised in the mountains by Chiron, son of Philyra. Thus Zeus' will was fulfilled. Of the daughters of Nereus, old man of the sea, divine Smanthe joined with Aeacus in the love of golden Aphrodite and bore Phocus, while silver-footed Thetis joined with Peleus and bore lion-hearted Achilles, router of enemies. And fair-crowned Cytherea bore Aeneas, joining in love with the hero Anchises on the peaks of windy Ida, rich in valleys. Circe, daughter of Helios, son of Hyperion, joined in love with stout-hearted Odysseus, and bore Agrius and Latinus, noble and strong, and she bore Telegonus, thanks to golden Aphrodite. They ruled over the famed Tyrrhenians far away in the Holy Islands. Footnote: This is an apparent reference to Italy, which in Hesiod's time was more a place of legend. End of footnote. Divine Calypso joined in love with Odysseus and bore Nausithous and Nausinous. These are goddesses who lay with mortal men and bore children equal to the gods. Now, Olympian muses, daughter of aegis-bearing Zeus, sing of the race of women. And this concludes the reading of Hesiod's Theogony.